Brian Wang again?
Yes,
I'm just going to call it the Randy and Brian Wang show because if I call it the Randy and Brian show, people won't know which Brian it is.
that's right. That's right.
Well, Brian, let's see. We had the second best day by percentage ever for Tesla today,
Hmm.
something like 22% or something up,
22%. That's right.
over $50.
Yeah.
Pretty significant.
Yep. Pretty significant. It was good.
And the funny part for me was, though, that after all of that, after this massive day, and the S&P ended up almost exactly where I said it was going to end up, although I thought it would take a couple of extra days to get there, but it ended up almost exactly on the 10% correction from its all-time high. Tesla ended up in no man's land. It ended up like in the like there's no anything, no technical reason why it should have ended up where it ended up. So were you surprised by that at all?
No, because on Monday we had um the fake news version of the pause, right? Where Kevin Hassett said some stuff intentionally, unintentionally, I think intentionally, that gave an indication that there might be a 9-day pause before being denied 30 minutes later, 20 minutes later by the White House, right, on Monday, right?
Right.
But the Tesla went to from 220-ish or 210, whatever, up to 252 on that news in just like 20 minutes,
Right.
right? And the rest of the market went up like, 8%, 10%, whatever like that.
Right. Right.
So it was that exact same thing on Wednesday.
Right.
And, in my X account, I tweeted out that copying other, some other people that everyone else observed was that, we're primed to run once there's a pause, a solution, something where the tariff fear gets off our back. And then we never broke down. Like, we went back down
Right.
right away, but we didn't go down lower than the 220-ish level that Tesla hit 3 times.
Right. And the
And,
same.
and also S&P also was hitting a floor too.
Exactly. Yep.
Right.
Almost at the same time. Yeah. So
Right.
it kind of ran at the same, which was interesting to see that Tesla was 100% following the market, basically almost this entire week, almost since they started this whole tariff thing last week. All right. So my position. I think your position may be the same. I think we go sideways well, certainly between now and the earnings call, we'll kind of go sideways up. So but kind of moving up towards the
Mhm.
earnings call because the earnings call could be so consequential. So I think, I mean, there's so many levels. You just mentioned a few. We got the Q car potentially being announced or a date. Maybe they'll announce the date they're going to show it or something like that. It'll certainly be asked about. If it hasn't come out before then, it will be asked about. Uh,
Mhm.
Hopefully, the number one question that day will be the batteries.
Mhm.
And I hope that's number one. I hope that's the very first question. What is going on with batteries? How much do we have in the United States? Are we able to, get enough out of U.S. supply? What are we going to do about China, so I hope that's the number one question, but we should get, I think, some resolution about batteries. And then, of course, FSD, next level, next version between now and then, probably. Would you
Mhm.
guess that would be true?
Yeah, I'm expecting FSD next version to come out. I'm expecting um, more announcements to be made. But the other thing is that the tariffs um, are not finished. It's the 9 days at 10%.
Right.
So the 10% tariff um, on imported cars and parts is not insignificant, right? So Honda, sorry, Hyundai, Kia, they all make the cars elsewhere. Um, is the I think the automotive stuff is still in
I,
play, which
I'm
is
gonna, I'm gonna,
25% level.
I'm gonna say that I am completely confused. I just had, just
Jeff
before
Lutz.
the show, we had Jeff Lutz on. Jeff was saying that the 25% tariffs are still on the automobiles. And I've seen other things, other reporting that it sounds like there's still some of that might be true. I know that it was not supposed to be on the parts, so that the US assembled cars that got parts out of Mexico or Canada, it would not be the 25% on those. Not sure whether there would be a 10%, but I don't think so. because they're still under the old agreement, is my understanding. But the cars coming out of Europe are coming out of South Korea or Japan might be subject to the 25% right now.
Right. That's my understanding
Yeah,
is how I interpret it. That
yeah,
25% on them is in play,
right,
and that is a substantial impact on the market,
right.
and that the USMCA one, the Mexico-Canada agreement, only lasts for 30 days from whenever they announce it. So maybe only like,
May 3rd, I think, is when that's supposed to be resolved.
right, right. So then that would mean that if they haven't got a deal with Canada and Mexico by then they also get lumped into the 25% tariff
Right.
category,
And then
which would then impact Ford and GM as well as many other car makers.
at least Honda and Hyundai and Toyota, anyway, the Japanese and South Koreans definitely get engines and transmissions from South Korea and from Japan, which would potentially be, even though they're assembling them here in the United States, they would be 25% tariff on those, I believe.
Right, right. So the fact that we're doing stuff now over 25 days on that, 90 is still a lot of pressure. It's not like, the it just was the DEF CON 4 aspect of it is off, but we're still at, DEF CON 1 and 2 for
Right,
these things, right? And any company or country that's not negotiating hard, because the whole point of the 9-day thing that um um oh sorry, the hedge fund manager or the bond trader guy who was talking about the 90-day thing was he's involved in supporting Trump, and he was making the big push on the 90-day. You remember the person who
are
was
you
doing
talking
that?
about Bill
Bill Ackman. So billionaire Bill Ackman was the one pushing the 90-day thing, saying that they could not respond in
right,
time,
right,
right?
right.
So 90 days is you're working as fast as possible, going back to, whatever parliament or whatever other government body to get things authorized to get it done, right? And then companies are still pushing as fast as they can
Right.
to get it done. Because if people think, okay, it's 10% and it's over, it's like, no, you still have to fix all these things, right? So that is still happening at breakneck speed for everyone. And everyone needs to come and have those meetings. So the 90 days is just like, okay, you have this time to do it.
And apparently, Besant is going to Japan
Mhm.
immediately, and
Yeah.
Hassett is going to South Korea.
Mhm.
So those were not, I mean, first of all, they were two of the first to come forward and say they wanted to do something. They are trading partners. They are allies. So
Mhm.
there's three different reasons why they would be first in line. But it was interesting that they're sending top guys to Japan and South Korea immediately. So
Right.
there might be some relief on those 25% because, again, the manufacturer or the assembly plants, they've just built them in the US, and that would be something that Trump would want to encourage and
Yeah.
discourage. So I think I think another reason why they're at the top of the list.
Right. And for them, it's like a huge percent of South Korea and Japan's economy is their auto business. It's like, I don't know, once you count the secondary and tertiary suppliers, it could be like 30%. It's a huge impact.
Yeah.
So they need to get some relief from Trump and to agree to whatever he wants to have in order to get a reasonable plan so they can still survive.
Yeah, I was listening to a list of the countries in terms of their export percentage of GDP, and I was shocked. I think Germany is 40% of their GDP is export. Now, again, I'm sure that's probably heavily
Yeah.
cars and trucks, and these monster vehicles of various kinds. But that's a big percentage of their GDP. It would
Mhm.
seem like these people like Germany would be also like right in line trying to make sure that they're getting this thing resolved as quickly as possible.
Right. they have to, again, it's because all the leverage is with the United States. Just if everyone digs into the numbers, all the leverage, all the power is on the other side. So it's just what is the agreement that they want? And people can talk about, well, ruining relationships and other things. It takes years, if not, over a decade to turn things around, to build things, to do stuff, to set up new relationships, to reconfigure your entire economy
Right.
to not be dependent upon the United States.
Right, right. Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think your point was earlier, I think you were building to the point, maybe I got in the way, is that Tesla is hugely advantaged right now in terms of their positioning because they make 70+% of every car
Yeah.
is domestic sourced and or manufactured. So we have a big advantage on that. Now, again, the big question is going to be the batteries, I think. But at least what's his face? We're not doing very good with names. Are we getting old or
Yeah.
what? The thinks that Tesla has motors and I mean
Oh, Peter
engine.
Navarro. Peter
Yeah,
Navarro,
oh,
special
yeah.
consultant
He thinks it has an
on
engine
trade and manufacturing. Yeah.
engine
Yeah.
and a transmission and only gets assembled in California. So I mean,
Right.
so apparently we don't have any advantage.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, in the 90 days, Tesla also needs to work hard to get that 70% up to 90, 95%, something like that. They have to get other sources of batteries. They need to get other sources of any other part to be localized, um, along with everyone else is doing the same thing.
Right.
So whatever switches you have to make, then that has to happen.
Okay. And then we also had Dan Ives. I gave him a very hard time yesterday about reducing his price target. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and he reduced his price target, I think, was it the 310?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
But with a little luck, we might blow through that next week.
Yeah, yeah. But I think he also backed into a three-way or at least a two-way, like a standard case and a bull case. So the bull case will still back up at whatever, right?
Oh,
So which is the I think Morgan Stanley
yeah.
had the
Right, right.
bear likely
Case.
and the bull case. Yeah. So three numbers. So it's basically like it could be 100. It could be 400. It's the thing of like I don't want to tell you what it is. This could be a huge range, which in some ways is correct because, over the last 2 years, Tesla was down at, got as low as 100, got
Yes.
close to 500, hanging around a lot of, 200 to 300. So it's like, yes, when nothing changes, there is this broad range.
Right,
But
right. So a lot of people on X were asking me today to restate my year end, my price targets, and that makes total sense. And I know this will sound braggadocio, but Brian and I, quite frankly, we've been more right than anybody. I mean, they
mhm,
should be calling us over at CNBC and
mhm.
inviting us on as a team, actually,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
we kind of come to these things kind of like a team. But you were at 450, I believe, on the all-time high. I mean, on the earlier for the end of January.
Yep.
Uh, I was at 410, and of course,
Mhm.
blew past both of those, but we were the only ones that were in that territory. I got
Yep.
the 300 on the nose. Well, okay, I was 72 cents high when we hit that 300 about 2 years ago, or about a year and a half ago.
Yep.
Nobody thought we'd get to 300. We got to 299.12 or something.
Yep.
And then this week, we both said that you said you had your theory about all the bad news being
Max Fear, yeah,
next year,
pain, yeah.
and I said, Brian, makes sense to me. So I
Mhm.
said yesterday morning or Monday morning, yeah, Monday morning, before the show opened. In fact, it's my thumbnail. It said
Mhm.
heading toward the green.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said I thought we would go back to the 10% under the all-time high on the S&P, which we have just done in the aftermarket or the pre-market. Um,
Mhm.
and so other than that, Brian, we haven't been right at all.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
Anyway, so how has any of this changed your thinking for the year end?
No, no.
Okay.
I'm still my thinking is that this will be an epic Q2. I
Mhm.
think that they will release um, the new car model. I've already said I think it's going to be very similar to, even if they have multiple versions, be similar to the Cybercab
Right.
in that they'll have the sheet molded compound.
Mhm.
So that kind of like a plasticky over metal shell over that, which they can make a four-seat version of the Cybercab very easily. And they can also make a lower cost version of a compact Model Y or something like that. All those things I think can be done very easily. So I think, and they can use the Model 3 and Y lines and then just have when the other Model 3s and Ys go to get painted, they'll have a little section of the factory to do this sheet molded compound thing to put the cover on top of the vehicles in order to make them, and they will reduce their cost by, $3,000 to $5,000. Other innovations will also get them, another $2,000, $3,000 off. I think they can introduce cars at the $30,000 or below level,
Mhm.
and then by the end of the year, they'll be making them in volume, and they can drop 25,000. They may drop closer to 25,000 for China and for Europe if they introduce those car models. So that car model will be huge. I know that the analysts, Dan Ives, um, Gary Black, all of them will love that new
Yes.
vehicle, and it'll immediately have you know increased price targets from everyone else. The other big thing, of course, is June Robotaxi. I'm convinced it's going to happen, and that will be huge. And it will, when they expand beyond that, that will be monster as well. But it will, I think, cause a PE growth, even though it won't immediately be huge earnings
Mhm.
right immediately. Although improving FSD does improve
Right.
earnings, but they haven't broken out yet. But those three things would be indications that the future is truly here and coming. That they would have all the analysts to think, oh, that um, ARK Invest scenario of 2600, the pieces are in place for that. All the bull case scenarios would then be in place for that, which would then, and they would know, okay, within Q3 and Q4, these things could really start hitting numbers. Plus, we have that, the 25% tariff thing, other things that are pushing the numbers on the vehicles. So I still think all that plays out, and it will, when I called the $1,000 price target, 1,500 if everything goes perfectly, it was based on it would be this great Q2 and then the numbers really roaring by Q4. So it's going to be kind of like, if the target's here, it's going to be like, and then, climbing at the end,
Yeah.
to
All
get
right.
that.
So my number is only 1,000 under the scenario you just laid out, meaning that Robotaxi is doing very, very well.
Yeah.
No major hiccups. We got some revenue numbers. We got something to wrap our heads around, something that can be put on a spreadsheet. My number only goes above 1,000 if we also have an announcement about Optimus.
Optimus, yeah.
But you're saying that even without the announcement about Optimus, you're okay with your 1,500 for the year end.
Um, if the rollout for and the earnings growth for things like energy,
Mhm.
like the other stuff goes really, really good,
Okay.
right? Where I think it could go, like, getting, like three times as much energy revenue,
So,
getting Robotaxi out to like, you know, 5,000, 10,000 vehicles,
mhm.
right? Which, perfect do.
Right. Sure.
Potentially 100,000 vehicles, right? 100,000 vehicles could be done. You take used vehicles and do whatever. So they're really running a hard network. The thing they're just running great there. Yes, I don't think the Tesla bot is necessarily needed. It would be a cherry on top that could give another 200.
Okay.
But also like once we're over 1,000,
Mhm.
and then as we've seen, some other little happy news,
Yes.
perception things could drive you to 1,500. It isn't like, oh, if we don't have $30 billion worth of earnings, there's no way you can go from 1,000 to 1,500 for like no reason,
Right. Right. Right.
right? So once you're over there,
Sure.
it's like it's only like two two kind of support levels. You'd be at all-time highs at 1,000, right?
Right.
And then it'd be like, if you do your Fibonacci thing of technicals, it's just like the next level is probably like 1,200 and then 1,500. It's like two levels up, which is like, what good news happens that drives it up. So it's like to get there and then hold it and keep growing, that may be different. But to like spike up there, yeah, I don't necessarily need to want to do that.
All right. And then I have my other plot time, which is end of May, which I'm saying that the FOMO will be fully involved by the end of May. Now that would assume that there's no decision to change the date. People always think, well, Randy, you set these numbers and then you have to live by them. No, news can change everything. There could be, thermonuclear war. I mean,
Yeah.
it would change the price.
Yeah.
So, yes. So assuming that the Robotaxi rollout is still on for June at the end of May, I'm saying we will be at all-time high at the end of May. So
Mhm.
that's my other price point. I have no other in-betweens or after that.
And the other thing is that Tesla, not a car company, it really starts happening this month because Grok is supposed to be put into Tesla cars. They said they would put the voice operated Grok into the Tesla vehicles.
Right.
So,
But did they say when?
and I think they said April, end of this month. I think
Oh, really?
I've heard,
Okay.
yeah, April and May is when they're going to put it in,
Okay.
right? So it's going to be like weeks away.
All right.
And the other thing would be that the XAI and Tesla AI part of things, that becomes the dominant story. CERN did the calculation for
Right.
2026, mid 2026,
Right.
but there's stuff this year that can happen. So I track the what's happening with the XAI data center in Memphis very closely.
Hmm.
Like how closely do I follow it? I follow it and say that, hey, they got a air environmental approval for them to add 15 mobile gas turbines
Oh,
that gives them an extra quarter, 240 megawatts of power,
okay.
which is enough for another 200,000 chips, right? So I
This is
look at the
Memphis or
purchase.
Memphis or Austin?
This is the
Memphis.
XAI Memphis,
Memphis. Yeah. Okay.
not separate one for the Tesla one.
Yeah.
So two big data centers.
Right.
Memphis is XAI, which make Grok,
Right.
right? So by looking at their approvals on their mobile power, right? So they went from they got 250 megawatts, and then they said, hey, we in the March or late February announcement of here we got Grok 3, right?
Right.
They said that we also installed another 100,000 chips,
Right.
right? So they had 100,000 training H800s training Grok 3, and they added another 100,000 already done, power and
Right.
chips done
Right.
by late February, March, when they announced, hey, we have Grok 3. So they've already been doing that, and they're in motion installing more stuff. The more stuff being NVIDIA B200 chips. The B200 chips are 5 times as powerful as an H100. So if I add 200,000 more B200s, that's 10 times the processing compute power of the 100,000 chips, right? So adding the power, adding the chips, by late May, they should have those other 200,000 chips installed, right? And they'll have 12 times the compute, which is the leap from Grok 2 to Grok 3 was 15 times. Grok 3 to Grok 4 will be 12 times, right? So about the same level of improvement of that, similar to moving from GPT-3 to GPT-4.
Right.
So that should be, based on AI scaling laws, all the research papers saying how much scaling laws tell you how much you should expect this to improve.
Mhm.
This will be, again, a very substantial improvement on their AI. So this is them pulling away on AI. Because why do I say they pull away? Can't the other companies just install that many chips? Jensen Huang, CEO, told everyone that they're installing chips in 120 days and then 90 days for 100,000 chips is superhuman. That no one else could do it, in less than a year, right? Which, if they're starting to speed up, they're starting from 360 days, trying to pull it down to 250 days, trying to pull it 200 days. Like, you know, the other guys have to learn how to get faster. They'll push to try and get faster, but they're starting from further behind on that. And then the other thing would be that Tesla has the patent, and they spent a year, 2 years to hard uh, code into hardware the 7 layers of Ethernet level 3 and 4. They switched from software into a special chip. They made some chip or other technology that would be in the hardware, so they have microsecond communication
Hmm.
on their between their GPUs, right? And they say, well, that seems boring. That is the secret sauce, the technology moat of I did something which is make entirely new hardware so that I can talk 1,000 times faster between my chips. So that, and this is everything that you need for AI, is that everything has to communicate together. Anyway, so bottom line is they, my predictions, they pull away on AI will happen with uh, Grok 4, and it'll be late in Q3, maybe beginning of Q4.
And
That's when that comes up.
and in the meantime, whatever Grok is when it's first installed in the car, it just means that voice, that robot that we'll get to talk to, will just get better and better and better, as we've
Right.
seen with other Tesla products, just with over-the-air updates. So, okay, so those are the kinds of things that we're talking about. And the thing that I couldn't understand about the conversation with the whole thing with Dan Ives was why he would have thought that any of this bending metal part, any of the unit numbers of vehicles caused by problems with tariffs or whatever was going to impact Robotaxi and Optimus, which he says is now the whole story. And with Elon I'm sorry, posted out again today. He said it again today. He says the whole story is FSD, Robotaxi, and Optimus. Yeah.
Right. Right. So I just view that as, Dan Ives, he has a bunch of clients and customers who invest with him or listen to his analysis. So he has to say things that, justify whatever price target changes, whatever other advice changes. Like if people are complaining to him about something, he has to say, I am aligned with your feeling. So, I'm gonna go negative when you want me to go negative is basically it. He'll do some hand holding, like Tom Lee talked about, holding hands, getting people supported. But then at a certain point, some of them change and they have to you know, go the other side. Now, what he actually believes, I'm not sure.
So I believe that he thinks that wearing colorful clothes
Yeah,
is a branding
yeah,
approach. Okay, so we have another story that you and I talked about in the green room before we went on. Okay, so one of the hardest things for me right now to deal with in my little pea brain
yeah.
is that up until, I don't know, 6 weeks ago, I hated George Soros because of what he did to the English.
Hmm.
Now I have to like Besant because of what he did to the English.
Right,
So
right.
I have, what do you call that? There's a name for that in psychology. I'm
Uh,
I can't I can't get that together.
yeah,
So these guys took down the
British pound
Besant and Soros and
and Druckenmiller.
took down the British pound and almost destroyed the British Empire
Yeah,
single-handedly one weekend
yeah,
because they were bored. They didn't know what else to do.
yeah,
So these three geniuses did that, and
yeah.
didn't wasn't George Soros like on the way to jail or something because he did that? I mean, we're supposed to
I,
hate
I
him.
don't, yeah. I think you can hate him for other reasons, plenty of other stuff he's done after that, unrelated to it. But that financial move was basically just seeing that, the British economy, I think in the 90s, was, going through a recession, had real estate problems. And so
So what they had with the real estate problem is so interesting.
yeah,
Instead, your interest rate on your mortgage changed every month, or I don't, maybe not every
Right.
month, but it changed a lot.
Yeah.
And so we had all these people go broke. My sister went broke because she had a beautiful home down in Hawaii,
Adjustable rate mortgage and stuff.
adjustable rate, and when her adjustment came in, her monthly mortgage went from like 3,000 to like 7,000, and she was like, "What am I supposed to
Yeah.
do?" So these were adjusting all the time.
Right. Right. So they saw that this was a vulnerability in their system and that they did not have the resources to defend it. So I think if you know the full numbers of like, okay, their actual balance sheet is whatever, right? Then they only have the means to do this much defense. And they figured, oh, if we leverage up this amount,
The Brits only had so much defense available.
right, so much defense available to support their currency, right? So then they said if we get our other financial traders to gang up on them, we can overwhelm their system, right? So it was just a numbers thing. It's like, oh, if we just get it up, if we dial it up to 100 billion, then they're done, right? And then they could say, okay, they could game it out. Okay, we dial up to 100 billion, they do this, they try to defend, and then we go to 150 billion, and then they tip over, right? So they had, played out the chess moves of how are they going to do it, and then they did, and they also made money after the British pound was adjusted and devalued. So they made money the rest of the year during the recovery or whatever else they predicted. So they predicted not just that we're going to break them, but
Right.
then they will make even more money afterwards.
Afterwards.
Right.
All right. So now so Besant was actually kind of the brains behind it. He was the
Right.
one that brought the idea to the other two,
Right.
even though they may hate Soros, but they know he's brilliant.
Right.
And everybody thinks that Druckenmiller is like the genius of, one of the three or four biggest financial geniuses of our age. But it was really Besant that brought the idea. And
Right. Right.
and he was an employee, I think. He was just an employee, but I think he was in on it or
Right.
got to take advantage of it. But since then, he's made his own 700 million.
Right.
And so he's quite well to do. So I don't know, do you think that's a good guy to have on board when you're uh, assaulting a country like China that has a real estate problem and whose economy is under stress?
Yeah, you want the mastermind who figured it out before. It's like do the same thing you did last time, but a slightly bigger scale, and do it. It's like having, you know, like Tom Brady or whatever, win the Super Bowl, win me another Super Bowl. You already did it once, win another one, or like a general who won some battle and you just ask him to run the same plays again. Yeah,
Yeah, so I mean, ultimately, I was having a lot of conversations over the last 2 days with you and other people about this whole bond gold thing. So it appeared last night, it was like the only thing that I could possibly think that was impacting the bond market last night would have been uh, China selling more of their
hmm
bonds. We know that they've been selling bonds and buying gold. This has been
right.
going on for a year. They've been
Yep.
selling bonds, buying gold, selling bonds, buying gold. But it looked like last night because the activity was so vertical. I mean, you
Yep.
don't see the bonds move that way, but hour after hour, the bond prices were just going crazy, or the bond yields were going crazy, and the bond prices were dropping like a rock.
Yep.
And then at the same time, gold was going like over $100 in one day, and you don't see that either. So it
Mm.
looked like that was the play. But
Mhm.
today, it's kind of hard to see. But the one thing that you and I talked about, I think, and others talked about, was that they wouldn't have had enough money. They wouldn't have been able to sell enough bonds to
Right.
overwhelm $7.2 trillion worth of just American money that's sitting on the sidelines, much less the Fed and everybody
Yeah.
else that could get involved.
Right. They have to get Japan fully on board with doing it well, and even then, the U.S. has enough financial means to defend it. That they have the trillions available to do it. And if you had Bethan, quarterbacking your thing, he would have made sure that hey, there's no way they could stack up even with whatever leverage, whatever they try and do. He would make sure, okay, we have a response to that.
Right. So in the meantime, if China really did do that, if they were part of it last night. Now, other people like Bradford and Ferguson says that he was selling bonds last night, so he thinks he was partially responsible, but he was taking the money and putting it into equities. So he
Right.
played very well last night. He's very happy. I'll talk to him about that tomorrow night. But anyway, I'm sure there were other people that were selling bonds and buying equities at that. The equities had dropped so fast. I couldn't have been the only person in the country who goes, no, this is news driven. It's stupid. And there's going to be a V-shaped recovery because Trump is not stupid.
Yeah.
He's going to allow for some kind of a 90-day pause or whatever. Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I think over the day, the 10-year Treasury went up as high as
4.5.
4.45, 4.46, something like
I
that.
think
Yeah.
overnight it was at
Overnight was also 4.5. Yeah, starting the day at that. And then now we're down to like a 4.32. So down
right.
7 basis points from the 4.4 from yesterday. Yeah. So that seems to be calming down as well.
But it was at 3.9 at the end of the day yesterday. It went from 3.9 to 4.5 during the overnight, which is there's hardly anybody trading.
Right.
So it was fascinating. Whatever happened, whoever was doing that, it was fascinating. Thank you for taking away another night of television. I didn't need television when I could watch that craziness going on. Okay, so in the meantime, if Besant wanted to, he and Lutnick, who's a fairly,
Slouch, yeah. Yeah.
he's no slouch either. If they wanted to maybe undermine the yuan, they probably could.
Right. Which I'm not sure they necessarily want to. In this case, I think they want China to keep the yuan or to strengthen it, but they have other financial objectives around how they want China to behave. And there's reports that they goaded them into doing something in terms of this position of increasing the rates. But in terms of like us guessing it and the final result, it's like we need to wait probably 2, 3 months, however it'll be, for the final result to happen and see, okay, oh, look, everyone came down to the rates. I think the end state is low tariffs, agreements on things like the fentanyl, the borders, and other stuff like that. And then the 10% global tariff is something that they want to be permanent. They want that to get them $300 billion.
Okay, so that's where I'm not 100% in alignment with you. I think what they want to trade that 10% for is really solid guarantees of purchases of oil, natural gas, agriculture, even coal. Buying stuff from the United States, which we have in abundance.
Yeah. Right,
Yes,
right.
it might be buying some widgets and some fun things that we make, okay, that maybe are buy more of those things from us. But I think what it really boils down to is we can turn on the oil tap like
Yeah.
crazy. We could turn on the natural gas tap like crazy. I mean, just Alaska alone. And it looks like that's the deal that's going to be made with Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan is going to be natural gas out of Alaska.
So then increased production of those things would then get them their $300 billion increased revenue because you just have more activity, more taxes, more other stuff in the country to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it'd be the fastest way to get there.
Right.
In particular, the natural gas in Alaska. I mean, the amount of oil and natural gas that we have, and that could also be true for China. China might be energy rich, but they are not oil or natural gas rich, and they still need oil and natural gas. And if they became a customer of our oil and natural gas, then that would be one way to get the balance of payments down.
Right. And then we're going into a world where there'll be huge energy growth.
Right.
The whole AI thing that China will also want to make more AI,
Right.
even if they're doing it with their own chips and that kind of thing, then yeah, there's reasons for a win-win where, people sell things more things are sold and then more things are built.
Yeah. All right. I think it's time for us this weekend maybe to review again how quickly the mini nukes could be started to be produced in the United States if the Trump administration really said all regulations off. I mean, I know
Mhm.
it's radioactive, but come on.
So I talked to many of the founders and companies that I track, all the companies that are making working to make the nuclear reactors. So in terms of like getting to some prototype reactors next year, yeah, I've talked to all the companies that are doing that. So there's a lot of interesting activity going on there, and they could start really making quite a lot as early as 2030, 2029, which is surprising. But if you deregulate and really want it to happen, then it can be done very, very quickly.
That's what I'm thinking. And so that's what I would love to talk to maybe this weekend. But in other words, if they not only deregulate, but they said, okay, this is moonshot priority,
Mm.
whether it's private funding or public funding, one way or the other. If it's financial, we'll solve it. If it's regulation, we'll solve it. If it's DARPA engineers and scientists that you need, we'll solve it.
Mm.
But this is the highest priority because it would seem like right now, that's the fastest way to allow us to catch the Chinese. I don't think we
Mhm.
do it with solar, but maybe we could. Maybe we could talk about both.
Okay, we can talk
All
about
right.
both.
All right. So listen, I want to do one last thing because when I finished up with Jeff, we didn't have the bond numbers yet. So where are we with the bonds? We are now looking at the bonds at down 8.2. So you said it a few minutes ago, it's 4.314. Everybody that follows this channel knows that I'm not happy with that. I want it to be 3.99999. Anything under 4 would make me happier. We'll see. We'll see if that is something that we can get to tomorrow.
Okay,
All
sounds
right.
good.
All right, Brian, thanks as always for jumping on and helping us out. And for all of you out there, follow Brian. I probably haven't said that in a while, but follow him on X especially. He's more active on X right now. But I'm sorry. What am I saying? Follow him on my next. No, what have I done?
Next Big Future. Next
Next
Big Future and YouTube. Yes. The website, the Substack. Yeah.
nextbigfuture.com, the
Yes.
largest science blog in the known universe. Brian, thanks again
Thank
to
you.
all of you. It's been great talking to you.